Okay, let's talk about materials. So we've done some materials throughout the project where I've added the flooring and the backsplash, and we talked about how to change the materials for the walls within the wall dialog box. So we've done some things, but let's dig a little bit deeper into how some of these materials are going to be working. When you are when you get into each of your objects, so let's just open this sofa. You can go over here to the materials tab, and you can specify the different materials here. So when you can do it in here, it's a good idea to do so, but you can also do it visually with the material painter. This way gives you a little bit more control. So you can specify, like for instance, in this particular model, you can specify all the different the cushions and the feet. So you can change the materials here. You just choose the portion that you want to change, and you go to select material, and then all of the material, the library will come up. And so you can find your materials in here and just change them like this. So if we wanted to change it to that blue, then we could do so. So you see that just changes that portion. So let's look at that again. Go to select material. And then we can also go here to plan materials, and this is everything that's already in the plan. So if you want to use something that you've used before and you don't want to search for it, in the library, everything that you've used so far in the plan is going to be here. And if it's actually been used, it will have a tick mark next to it. So actually every once in a while, it's a good idea to just do a purge, and that will get rid of any extra materials that aren't actually being used in your plan anymore, and that will help lighten up your plan so that the file is not so big. So we can go back over to library materials, and I'm just going to put that back to that white so I can show you what happens over if we don't do it through this dialog box. So yep, okay, so that changed back to white. So okay, all right, so there's another way to add materials is here with the material painter. So if we click that, it opens up this material dialog box, and we can select any material in here that we want. So let's just go to a fabric, and let's pick this stripe. Let's just pick a stripe, and okay. And if I use the painter here, I get these options. So this option does the component. So that will do everything that is considered one component within that object. So however it's divided up, not all objects are divided up. So that did my cushions. And then if I did object, that would paint everything in, oh, let me undo that first. So you can see, let's go back to white. So everything's white. So if I choose object and click that same cushion, well, that's done the same thing there. So let's undo that. And if I go to room, that's going to paint everything in this room that's painted this same fabric. Well, it's so these must be different fabrics then. So if I go to floor, it'll paint everything in the floor that's the same fabric. And if I do project, it'll do everything in the entire project that is that material. So let me show you what that looks like, because I have decided that I do not want my window trim on the inside to be this creamy white color. I want it to be a white color. like I have on the outside of the house. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this material dropper. I can pick this up and select a color here. And so now I've got this color picked. And now if I go here with this selected as project, every single thing in my entire project that's painted this color will change. So I can just click that window casing there, and every single bit of wood or anything else that was painted that color inside this project has now changed. Every window, everything. So that is a super easy way to change everything in the project. So you can do it by component, by object, by room, by floor, or by project. So there is another way that this works. That is this tool. This is this little paint roller tool. So what that does, it doesn't work with every material. It only works with some materials. So it only works with with some. So I've got this white board and batten here, and I've got this stone here. So I'll show you on both how that works. So I would go here and choose a color. So this only works if you choose a color. This won't put a texture over a texture, but I could use a color from there, or I could use something from my manufacturer's catalogs. I could go to my Sherwin-Williams and choose a color here. So let's choose a nice blue, just to show the difference. And I'm only going to do it, let's just do it as a component, but let's tick this one. And so here's what happens. That will paint that color that I chose over top of that texture. So I could use this whiteboard and batten and paint it this exact Sherwin-Williams color. So that is how that works. That only works by using a color or a paint color over a texture. You can't paint a texture over a texture. So I could also paint that over the stone. I could paint it over brick. So now I've got painted stone. So I'm just going to undo that now so that we don't have that. But that is how you can paint a color over top of a texture to customize that how you like. So then the next thing you can do is, if you were to pick this up now with the eyedropper with this on it, now it's going to pick that whole thing up, and you can copy that over. And then if I wanted to make it my whole project with that, now if I wanted to paint the entire house, that same Sherwin-Williams painted board and batten, I could do that. And now my entire project is painted that way. So those are the options with the painter and the eyedropper. Now this eyedropper is different. This picks up the parameters of the object. So this is for your objects. It's not for your colors or your textures. This one is for your colors or your textures. So this little ribbon rainbow tool here, this adjusts the materials. So after you've painted something, if you want to adjust it, you can. So you can grab that tool, and then you can go in and let's just pick our flooring. And I could go here and make adjustments. So if I needed to adjust that texture for some reason, if I wanted to make it at a different angle, I could make that maybe at a 45-degree angle. So now that's going to change all of that flooring that's linked together throughout the house. So that changes all of that for me. So that's what that tool does. This tool here deletes your surface. So if I wanted to delete a layer, like if I wanted to delete the sheetrock layer off of this wall, I would use that and delete that, and then now I just have the wood layer underneath. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to undo that. There we go. Okay, so another way that the painter is very handy is to add paint texture to your wall. So I could go in and add a texture to this wall and then paint over that. The thing that you need to remember if you are doing renderings is that when you use this paint tool, sometimes it does not change the default within the object itself. So you could end up with conflicting textures. So if you are doing rendering and you're getting some sort of flickering or something like that, it's because you've painted over something and there's two different textures attached to that object. So again, that's where it's going to be important to always do a purge and go through the dialog box of the object and check those materials when you can to make sure that they are linked properly. Okay, let's talk about custom materials. So to bring in a custom material, your own material, you're gonna go to your material painter here, and then you're gonna click this button right here, Add New Material. So we're going to do that, and then you will go to the texture tab and you're going to browse over to wherever you've saved the image that you want to use for that texture. So I have a rendering folder here that has all of the textures that I download and that I like to use. So if I wanted to make this hex tile here into a texture, then I would just select that. And then, so that opens that up there, and then I could call that a gray hex. You have to give it a name, and then you can set all of its other parameters. You'll set its size here, and you can go into its properties and you can tell it what it's going to look like when it renders. If you're rendering inside Chief Architect, then you can set this up. So this is going to be a matte material. I don't want it to be shiny or anything. And then you can add your bump maps, and you can really get into the details here of your textures if you are doing rendering inside Chief. If you're rendering elsewhere, then you're mostly going to be concerned with getting it mapped properly, which means getting it the right size and getting it placed on the object properly. So you've got lots of other options in here to do that, but let's just go ahead and keep everything as it is and click OK. And now it adds that into my user catalog. So these are all the things that I've added over time, but it adds it there to my user catalog, and then I click OK. So now it is available to me in my material painter, and so if I wanted to add it here instead of this tile, I would just click it there, and there it is, added to that tile. So that is how you add your own textures.